seminar, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Professor Raphael, who needs no introduction, but I'm just going to say a few words. Professor Israeli is Professor of Islamic, Middle Eastern and Chinese history at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and he is the author of over 20 books. And of course, all of you know him very well because he is frequently come to Jerusalem Center of Public Affairs, so we are very thankful that you are coming here today as well. And Professor Israeli will speak to us on Sheikh Salah from Faham, about whom he has written a book. He will address the Sheikh's role as leader of the Islamic movement, his involvement with Hamas and the Aqsa Foundation, the metaphor of the Templars, his trial in Haifa and its result, and his recurrent trouble with the law. And after Professor Israel's presentation, we are going to have a few minutes for discussion as usually, and then we are going to show a few minutes excerpt from the movie Fitna, and Dr. Raphael is going to analyze that. So without further ado, I would like to ask Professor Israel to start.
So, good day, everyone. The task that I was assigned in quite a short time, I'll try to do my best to encompass at least the main points of the book. Now, this book was written under certain circumstances. I would like to say a few words about that first, how the book came about. Secondly, to speak about the metaphor of the Templars. You know, the subtitle of the book is called Islamic Radicalism and Political Violence. The subtitle is The Templars of Islam and Sheikh. And I would like to explain that metaphor. Thirdly, I would say something about the Islamic movement in Israel and the role of Sheikh Raed as a religious actor in it. A religious actor, the whole idea is really the genesis and the trigger of this entire project. And finally, as time allows, we will speak a little bit about the trial, because this whole business came to bear during a major trial that took place in Haifa about 2.5 or 3 years ago. Sorry for being early. So there was a trial, and the trial was, as a matter of fact, the trigger for the entire book. So I'm speaking in enigmas, I realize that. So let me explain every one of those in a few minutes, again as time allows. First of all, the whole idea of this religious actor was born some 2 or 3 years ago when at the Truman Institute of Research I joined a group which is called RACA, that's Religious Actors in Area of Conflict. And the idea was to examine the role of religious figures in conflicts around the world. And we found out just by chance that from all the 10 members of the group who joined that project, 8 of them, including myself, chose an Islamic actor. It just tells you the role of Islamic contemporary politics in contemporary conflict or areas of conflict. And 2 others chose other things. One chose the Vatican, the role of the Pope as a religious actor, and somebody else chose something else. It doesn't matter. So that's how it was born. And then we started working on the idea. And everybody examined his political actor, and while discussing among us, it was very fruitful discussion, we found some common denominators that characterized, say, all those religious actors, because the religious actor had to have some traits of character which enabled him or her, but it was him for the most part, to lead uh, his followers and to play a role, sometimes a crucial role, in either the settlement of the conflict or, unfortunately more often, the incitement of the conflict or the aggravation of the conflict. And it played both ways. And while leading that kind of research, we came to some very interesting conclusions regarding the role of religious actors in general. And that is the first chapter of the book is devoted to that. Those of you who are interested in that very interesting discussion, I think can or should read that and share in the conclusions that we came to. Now, together with that group of research, Sheikh Raed, whom I had chosen to work on, and I had chosen him because I knew him personally, and 10 years ago, when the Islamic movement in Israel was at its very genesis, I had written a book. It was published in England too, and it is called Islamic Fundamentalism in Israel. But then, of course, most of the book was dedicated to the founder of that movement, by Sheikh Darwish, who is arguably more moderate than the other, but that's another issue. I don't want to go into it now. And this Sheikh Raed was one of his disciples. The movement started in 1979. It was quite virulent and even violent, and they even led some acts of violence and sabotage against Israel, notably against the Israeli national water conduit, which is a very sensitive target, and so on. Anyway, they were arrested, and Darwish repented, and so on. Then they were released from prison, and since then he has been tagged by some Israeli leaders, certain Israeli leaders, as a moderate, and he enjoys very much that label. And under that label, he is also very active in ways that I wouldn't call moderate. But so he was tagged to this day. In 1995, just on the eve of national elections in Israel, there was a major split in that same movement established by Sheikh Darwish. And the reason for the split was the following. Because we were going to national elections in which the Islamic movement had refused to participate in a very insistent way for their own reasons, Sheikh Raed, who continued to refuse to participate in the elections, refused to go along with the suggestion of the Sheikh Darwish, the founder of the movement, who wanted for the first time to join the elections. Now, the arguments on both parties are the most interesting, I think, for us to know. Sheikh Darwish, the founder, the so-called moderate, said, and rightly so, that in Israel, everything depends on politics. You know, sports, housing, health, everything belongs to some kind of political party. And if you don't have a political party, you cannot partake of Israeli politics, and you cannot get anything from the government, from Israeli society, and so on. And therefore he said we should join politics. However, we cannot give or legitimize the system by joining it, because then we would be acknowledging the existence of a Zionist entity, and we would be taking part in its system, especially that before we become Knesset members, if we are elected, we have to swear allegiance to the State of Israel. That's what you do when you become Knesset members. And that we cannot do as an Islamic party. And therefore he said, we'll join the elections, but in conjunction with other Arab parties, Arab, not non-Arabs, and then we can call it United Arab Party. This is the round United Arab Party that exists in the Knesset today, where you have 2 members of the Islamic movement and 2 other members of some other trend. It doesn't matter. But Sheikh Raed was adamant, and he said that the very joining of a Knesset, of a Zionist institution, would doom us in the future, and therefore no participation in national elections of any sort. He said what we can do, what we have to do, is to participate in local elections, because every local government can make its own bylaws, and their bylaws, for example, you cannot enact a law to prohibit alcohol, let's say, in the country. But as a mayor, as a local council, you can make a bylaw which prohibits alcohol in your village, for example. And therefore he said we can organize our Muslim enclaves in these local villages or townships, so as to lead our Islamic life independently of national life of the Israelis, which we do not recognize and to which we do not want to belong. And because there was disagreement, there was a split between what is called the Southern movement, the so-called moderate under Sheikh Darwish, and the more, they call it extremist or northern or whatever, under Sheikh Raed. And now the majority of the movement follows Sheikh Raed. He became really the hero of the thing. And here I come to this question of Templars. And this is really the big innovation done by Sheikh Raed himself. Sheikh Raed is comparatively younger. He's about 10, 12 years younger than Sheikh Darwish. He is in his early 50s. He served for 10 years, between 1989 and 1999, as the mayor of Al-Fahim, which is a township of 32,000 Muslims, the largest Muslim township in Israel. And after a very successful role as the mayor, about that a lot can be said, but again I don't want to take the time for that. After that he decided to leave the mayorship to a successor and to establish something that is called the Aqsa Foundation. Al-Aqsa Foundation with the symbolism of Al-Aqsa. And he has been traveling all over the Arab world, especially the Gulf, Turkey and Egypt, and collecting money, getting recognition around the Islamic world. And with that money, he established a Muslim college in Al-Fahim and all kinds of social institutions. I mean, it's very good social activity. No one can reproach to him that. And because of his stunning success in Al-Fahim, he expanded his social activity all over the country. And so on. He did a lot of things, but I will not go into that. He even lured Cat Stevens, the famous English singer, to come to Umrah. You know, Cat Stevens had converted to Islam, but he is still a very wealthy man. He took a name of Yusuf Islam as the Muslim. He lured him to come to Al-Fahim, and he donated a large sum of money, $4 or $5 million, which was put to good use, I must say, because one of the characteristics of this fundamentalist Muslim movement, that they are not corrupt like all the other leaders. They put their money to good use, of course, from their point of view, which for us might be terrorism or things of that sort, but again, we'll get to that if we have time. So, because of Al-Aqsa, the name of Al-Aqsa that he took, and he put the idea of rehabilitation of the old Islamic community in Israel before the establishment of the State of Israel. You know, there was here a branch of the Muslim Brothers from Egypt and so on and so forth, which had vanished during the years of Israeli rule, but it was revived since 1967 when the territories came under Israeli rule. So not only does he want to rehabilitate old cemeteries, Muslim cemeteries, old mosques that were destroyed and so on, but he took on the idea of Al-Aqsa to revive the Al-Aqsa, to warn all the time against the Jewish excavations underneath, in order, of course, to undermine the foundations of Al-Aqsa until it collapses. And he created a big alarm in the Muslim world, which by itself gave him this big recognition and brought him a lot of money. And based on this Al-Aqsa alarm or false alarm, he brought large sums of money to the foundation, and he uses the money not only for the refurbishing of Al-Aqsa. He built, a first floor under Al-Aqsa, which they call the Marwani mosque, and that we call Urvot Shlomo, but it's two appellations for the same idea. And so not only protection of Al-Aqsa, not only does he use the symbolism of Al-Aqsa, but he does also that work of rehabilitation throughout the country of all the old Muslim sites which were destroyed, and he tries to revive all that. And because of that, I used again that metaphor of Al-Aqsa, because the Templars in Jerusalem, who had a totally different role, of course, and so on, and they were also fighters for an idea, religion, they took Temple Mount as their symbol, because they used to live there. The first king of the Crusader state gave them the mount and whatever buildings were there in order to make their headquarters there. So there is that similarity of the symbolism of Temple Mount, and therefore I say, well, these are the Templars of Islam. I think it was sort of some kind of attractive name. Now, so I said that together with our research of the Raqqa group, that group of research about the religious actors, I hear that in Haifa, the district attorney decided to indict Sheikh Raed as the head of the Aqsa group for collaboration with Hamas. Now Hamas, as you know, is outlawed in this country, and is labeled as a terrorist organization. Not only that, the Israeli government has even convinced America and even some most European countries to acknowledge Hamas as a terrorist organization and to sever relations with it and so on. And here comes an Israeli citizen, Sheikh Raed, and not only supports it in ideology, but if you remember, when Rabin just came to power back in 1992, he expelled 400 leaders of the Hamas to Lebanon. So this Sheikh Raed organized a whole convoy of food and medicine and so on. They wanted to push that kind of supply across the border to Lebanon. The Israeli authorities prevented them and so on. So he was there for anything Hamas. When somebody from the Hamas blows up, and that happens very often, unfortunately, immediately he sends a group of people, first of all, to bring condolences to the families, not to the families of those who are blown up by the Hamas member, innocent Israeli civilians, never those, but those who were blown up, they bring them support, money, condolences, and all that. And he raised the money, and there are a lot of proofs and evidence that was collected over here. So here, while I was mulling over this coincidence, here I am doing research on a man, and then they started in. I was called up by the district attorney of Haifa. If I could come, they need some advice. So I went there as a good citizen to help with some advice. So they asked me, to appear as a so-called expert advisor or expert witness, to appear in court for the case, because they wanted evidence to give evidence to the judges about what's going on with Hamas, what is Hamas and so on. So of course I agreed, and for me it was a bonanza because I agreed to join the case. So they put at my disposal masses, there was a room like that, full of masses of documents, including files upon files in the dozens, for example, of telephone wiretapping that they took from him, Shin Bet took from him, by court order. It's not, nothing was illegal there. And all kinds of correspondence that they seized in the office of Al-Aqsa and so on and so forth. And therefore I had a unique opportunity of enriching my research, my data from material that I would have never been able to approach otherwise. And I worked on that stuff for a whole year, and I appeared in court and so on. The judge was Lyndon Strauss, who is now the state controller. He sat there in court, and it was, but the trial was conducted in a shameful way, because the Sheikh Raed, together with four accomplices who were indicted together with him, they directed the trial. They decided what is to be done. They brought with them 200 people from Al-Fahim. They sat all the time. And I, as the witness, I stood there on the rostrum for 3 days. I was cross-interrogated by the lawyers, you know, the Feldmans and all, and people of that sort. And when I needed to go to the bathroom, so I had to be accompanied by security, because they were afraid for my safety. You know, if you can imagine the atmosphere that happened in that place. And I counted in one day 26 times the judge told the Sheikh Raed, if you continue this, I'll oust you from the room. He repeated it 26 times. And the man was never ousted once. Because every word I said, they would rise and say, racist, you are anti-Muslim, you are, all right. They would say that, and they would repeat it, and they would repeat it. Never was any intervention on the part of the judge, he or the two other judges who were with him and so on. And therefore the whole trial, from my point of view, was a sham. And then when I approached them to get some minutes and so on, the judge tells me that you have to bring the approval of the two parties in so that I can give you the minutes. So I say, well, where is the principle of the publicity or the openness of trial, or the minutes of trial, and so on and so forth. So I obtained what I needed, and the book is done, and it is finished. But I told them, because of this shameful show of injustice, and because this guy should have been in prison, there was enough evidence to put him all his life in prison. They decided, political decision, to end the trial with a plea bargain. And the moment they did the plea bargain, so he stayed 2 years in prison, and he left the prison as a hero. He came back to his village. That the whole indictment from the beginning was a sham. That it is the Israeli Shin Bet, of course, who wanted to accuse him. You know what you hear from Arab Knesset members day in, day out today, that everything is made up, it's fake. They are saying they never did anything wrong and so on. And because of that, yeah, I'm told that I have to. Yeah, I'm told that if I want my speech to be immortal, it doesn't have to be eternal. So well, so I told them, if that's the way you lead the trial, which is a trial of crucial importance for Israeli society, security, and blah blah blah, then I'll write a book about the whole thing. I have all the material. And that's what I did. And Lindenstrauss is mentioned there in the book, and you can guess not necessarily positively. And this is how it came to be. And just to wrap up, and then of course we'll open it to the discussion, which is will be perhaps more important and more interesting than what I have to say. Let me say that from my point of view, it has both a research aspect and a practical aspect. The research aspect, by discussing the matter with my colleagues, it's 10 of us, and everybody speaking about his or her actor that they brought to the research group. I think I learned myself a lot about some kind of theoretical aspects of a religious actor and so on. Some of them are encompassed, as I said in the opening chapter, where it speaks about the research group. And for me, even more important is that perhaps it will contribute something to awaken Israeli society to the danger that we have from within. Because everyone speaks about the Palestinians and we have to solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and all that nonsense. But I think the danger that really threatens our existence here is the danger from within. These are people who already constitute 20% of the population in the country. They have 10 members of the Knesset who identify themselves as Palestinians, not Israelis, as Palestinians. They can go to any Arab country. They don't understand what is the rule of law or a country of law. They think democracy is to protect them when they do anything they want. That's how they understand democracy. The country of law or a state of law is a state where they can apply to the Supreme Court whenever they don't like something. That's for them state of law. So I think that since our public is asleep and do not understand the gravity of the situation, I would feel rewarded if something is contributed to awakening our sleepy public. Thank you very much.